about co-production from ABS perspective? You know, how does it fit strategically, for example?
Yeah, sure. So co-production with ABS, I should say ABSS because we have a South End on the end of it. It's always been about making sure that what we do, so what services we put together, what projects we put together, it meets a local need. So what do local parents need at that moment in time, and how might that need change? So although we work with lots of different partners from all sorts of different sectors, and they bring obviously very valuable input, it's something where I think right from the very beginning, ABSS were clear that if we're making things to benefit local parents, we need to work with them. They can tell us what they need. They can tell us how you can address that need in a way that works for them. So it's always been about making sure that they are included at the earliest opportunity. We can hear what they are saying, we can match that up with what our partners are saying, and we can hopefully come out with a product that actually does work. And I think what's useful about co-production as well is that parents will be making that thing, whether it's a project, whether it's helping to design a service, whether it's looking at, I don't know, designing a website, they'll be making it with you. So they're offering that feedback as they go. And even when you get to the end points, if something actually in actuality hasn't worked in some way, they can tell you straight away. So you get that feedback straight away. You can fix anything that's not working so much quicker. So yeah, I think that's been the main point behind it, really.
Has it been a straightforward journey?
No. I've been working at ABSS for just a couple of years, so I haven't been here for the whole time. But even in the sort of year or so that I've been here, no, it's not straightforward. I think you're working with lots of different people who come from, you know, different backgrounds. They've got different lived experience. They've got different knowledge to draw on. They've got different opinions, and they've all got their busy lives. You know, working as a parent with ABSS, it's an add-on to the rest of their lives, which might be very busy. So you're always having to think about, am I communicating the way that I need to? Am I getting the message across? I've communicated with all these partners. Have I included the parents in that? And have I done that in the way they need it? They've given me this feedback. How do I respond? It's a continual process, I think. Very rewarding one though, but it's not straightforward.
So what's gone well, would you say?
I would say the biggest thing that has gone well from working with parents in this way is that it has strengthened the projects and the services that ABSS has put forward and has supported. And again, it's been that continual process of working with parents to design something or to evaluate how a project is going, and about constantly checking in with them to say, is it still meeting your needs? Are we creating any barriers as we go that we hadn't thought about? Has anything changed? Do we need to reevaluate? So all the way along the way, from what I've seen, the projects and the services that we work on have become stronger and stronger because we're constantly doing that with parents. So I'd say that's the main thing. You can feel a bit more, not guaranteed, but a little bit easier in the knowledge that the people that it's supposed to benefit are telling you it's working, or it's not working, but we can do this. So you're not just putting something out there and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
And so we've heard from some parents around some of the things that are important around co-production. How does it work for staff members, both within ABSS itself, the team within ABSS, but also your partner organisations who are funded, presumably, to deliver projects and pieces of work? What do they need to know about co-production? What's important from the staffing end to help make it work for parents and families?
Yeah, I think for the team working at ABSS as staff, the most important thing is that you buy into it from the beginning. So you come into that job and you know what the culture is. This is how we design our services, this is how we work with parents, this is what you need to buy into if you're going to work here, essentially. Because I think that sets you up to know that in this organisation, a parent's opinions or voice is important. It's not a nice tag on, it's not a nice to have if we've got time for it, but don't worry otherwise. It is an important part of the process. So whenever you're going through that in your day-to-day life at work, and you maybe have to review a project, or you have to review the way in which you're communicating about something, all of the way along the way, you should have it in your mind, and your colleagues will be checking in with you to say, have you spoken to parents about that? How are parents involved in that? What has their feedback been? How are you going to manage that? I think if you didn't have that kind of culture set up from the start, it wouldn't happen. You know, people wouldn't prioritise it within their day-to-day working life, because it adds another layer to everything that you're doing. If you're reviewing a project and you've constantly got to be working with a partner to bring the parents together, to find the time when they can meet, they can look at the thing you're reviewing, you can, you know, work on their feedback, that does add in more time. It creates something stronger at the end of it, but it does take more time, and I think you have to be completely sold on why that's so important and how effective it is, so that you build it into your everyday life without having to think about it.
And has that been true of partners as well, partner organisations, as well as ABS itself?
Well, SABS is one of our partner organisations that manages our parent engagement programme. So they have that super close relationship with parent champions, but also lots of parents that come along to events and they engage them with our services. So SABS really have probably, you know, been a champion of this for everyone. And I think all of our partners, you know, whether they're in the NHS or local authorities or other charities, I think over the course of the 10 years that ABSS has been running, I think for one thing, SABS has done a brilliant job with promoting that parent voice and how important it is. But I think all of the partners have, over time, come to realise the value of it, and how significant it is, and how much you can get from it, how much benefit you can get from it.
We've spoken before about a little bit about co-production versus consultation.
Yeah.
Yes, and also I remember something you said last time about we don't say we do co-production, but we say we're working towards it.
Yeah.
Could you just sort of talk a bit about that? So it's not a very good question, but
yeah, no, that's fine.
Our grandson's given us this cold, and we're both kind of
Oh,
anyway,
yeah, it's January, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think one thing that is quite clear at ABSS, at SABS, within our parent engagement programme, is that we always try and work towards co-production. So co-production is essentially bringing people together, including for us parents, who need to be there to you know, add their insight into how something is being created, and they work on it together. So there is equal responsibility, decisions are made together, and you do it together. It's not always possible. Sometimes there might be, as I said before, reviews that are happening with projects, or we might need to look at how we're communicating something and thinking, are we communicating this in the best way? And sometimes it's not always necessary or useful to do a full co-production piece around that, in which case we would instead consult with parents. So whereas we're always looking at every opportunity and thinking, well, we want to co-produce more often than not, so we'll try and lean towards that. If it's not always possible because of time, or it's a very small ask, we will consult. And that will mean that we will go to parents, we'll take our ideas, or maybe what we've got to begin with, and we'll ask them what they think. So we'll collect that feedback in, we'll respond to that feedback as best as we can, and hopefully good consultation means that we'll always be going back to them and saying, thank you for giving us your ideas, we were able to action this, and here's what we've done with it. the other ideas we weren't able to take forward, and here's why. So sometimes I would say that's the difference between consultation and co-production. Co-production, you're a team working together, and you make decisions together. Whereas consultation, you're asking for that feedback and that opinion, and then hopefully using that to inform what happens next.
Is there anything you do differently if you were starting again?
I was thinking about this question. I genuinely don't think I would. I think probably other people will say something very, very different.
Could you just say, would I do anything differently? I don't think I would. Could you just so that I know so that the question's there?
Yeah, sure.
Just say, or just say, would I do anything differently? Whatever you want to say.
I'm not very good at acting, but I'll give it a go. Would I do anything differently? I don't think I would. And I think other people would say something different, understandably. But my understanding of co-production is that you're working with people, and people who come from very different walks of life sometimes. And that's always going to require a lot of time. It's always going to require a lot of patience sometimes. And I think there are always going to be moments where things could be misunderstood, or you don't do something as well as you could have done. And those people have to come back to you and say, you're not doing this right, or you've misunderstood my feedback, or I gave you that feedback and you didn't get back to me on that instance. I think when you're working in that way with people, you've got to expect that there are going to be those moments where you don't get it right, and you have to just try and take that on board, say, I'm really sorry, how can we fix this? And I think those moments have happened, but from my experience, ABSS and SABS as well have always been very open and honest about that, and very keen to say, okay, we're really sorry if we've got it wrong. What can we do to fix it? And that's been my experience. So I think to say, oh, I wish that hadn't happened, it seems a bit odd, because I think, well, that happened for a reason. That feedback came back for a reason, and it's how we responded to it that hopefully made the difference.
Brilliant. And what about any particular top tips for other organisations or other people, or even other parents, families thinking about becoming involved in co-production?
I think a top tip for working in a co-production way would be certainly to put the legwork into knowing your audience first. So if there's an organisation that thinks, yeah, I want to co-produce with my local community, at that point, go and speak to your local community. Find out, well, who is in your local community? Who are you trying to work for or provide benefit to? And get to know them, hold forums or workshops to say, very honestly, our organisation wants to work in this way. Would you like to be involved? We'd like to figure it out with you. Because then you start to understand what people want and need before you even start thinking about, I've got this idea for a project. And it might be through those initial workshops that people in your community tell you about a need that you weren't even aware of, and you can scrap your initial plan and go, oh, this is what we need to focus on. And practically as well, those people will be able to tell you, don't bother trying to talk to me at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday because I'm just not free. So even just the practicalities of knowing how you can engage with people, you can figure out. And I think if organisations can do that, it's hopefully provides that good foundation for a really good working relationship as you go on. And for parents in particular, I'm aware there's probably lots of parents out there who've no idea what co-production means. But I think if there are any parents out there who want to be a bit more involved in their local community, and maybe they're seeing adverts for co-production with different groups or organisations, and they're thinking, well, what does that even mean? I think even just doing a little bit of Googling or asking those organisations, what does co-production mean? So you can go into it informed and know that actually when co-production is going really well, you've got an equal voice to anyone else in the room. If something's not working for you, you can let people know. If you need certain things accommodated so that you can attend meetings, you have a right to let people know that. It's not just about, you know, you're being invited into the room and you're not an equal. You absolutely are.
Brilliant. And on a practical level, how has or how does power get shared? I mean, do you think that power has been shared with parents through ABS?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think talking about power with co-production is really interesting, and I think with a lot of our projects, we, as much as we can, ABSS can or SAVS can, we have tried to share that power. And particularly when you're starting a project and you're starting it and you know you want to co-produce, I think starting it and knowing as you go into it that you are going to have to share responsibility, you're going to have to share, you're going to have to create an equal playing field so that anyone who you're co-producing with, whether that's parents or whoever from your community, can come into that group and know that their contribution is equally valued, the same as anyone else, even if there's a CEO sitting in the room, that they will be expected to take on some responsibility for helping that project to go along, that they will be involved in decision making. So I think it's about knowing that the power is shared in that sense. You know, you can't put through a co-production project if at some point along the line one person starts making all the decisions and not communicating that with others. That's when it changes. So in that sense, the power can be shared because you're making decisions collectively and moving the project along that way. I think that's probably the best way to think about it. If you were an organisation going in thinking, well, you know, I'm holding all the funding, therefore I'm holding all the power, and if I want to make a decision on my own, I will, you're not doing co-production.
That's it.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Is that all right? Is there anything else you want to say though?
I don't
That's
think
great.
so. I think that was
That's
all right.
great. Absolutely.